what hurts me, and it's difficult to say it, it's when we saw our young people in the streets asking for a right to be educated. And we came out and started shooting. And we killed them. How many other families cannot account for where their children are? And they are now very scared of even speaking out because there is a killer squad that is this country. It's not a squad that is under the police command. I dare say that I believe that is why Kome resigned. Because he had people who had a different command and he is being held responsible for the mess in this. While I can tell you, Ruto does not have the numbers to impeach Gachagua. So this is a kipindi. It is meant to achieve the sympathy that is in the mountain.
Do you think the mountain regrets not having listened to Uhuru?
There is a very heavy sense of regret. And telling us to go to Raila, he was never also saying that Raila is 100%. Even before getting to Raila, I am personally aware that he had this discussion with Matiangi. Yes, he had interested Matiangis. And I sat in meetings with Matiangi and others to try and prepare for his presidency. The William that we know has already seen that what he was scheming to achieve through AU is not working. The votes that he thought he's put in his basket from Nyanza and Western, ameziangalia na ameona si nyingi vile alikuwa anataka. Kuna zile zimekataa kuingia kwa saduku yake.
So AU was a plan?
AU was a kipindi. I believe that this country is a very rich country. There is enough for each one of us. But there isn't enough for the greedy ones.
Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. My name is Lynn Ngugi and I'm so happy that you get to join us for yet another beautiful episode. And I've said my intention in this show is that we are able to learn and relearn a lot of things that we've learned through the years. I am so happy even for the feedback that you keep giving us. And I've said we will continue having these thought-provoking conversations because I believe that's the only way we are able to learn. My guest today is known to majority of you, but today we are going to find out more about him, what he believes in and what he thinks is wrong with Kenya and what could be right and what do we need to do to make sure that we secure our country. When people say Kenya ni home, we tend to undermine that statement, but I want everyone to remember Kenya ni home and we have to be able to collectively play our role to make sure that Kenya remains home. I'm about to let him introduce himself, but before I do that, if you are watching this show and you've not subscribed yet, please subscribe. We hit our 1 million subscribers mark just the other month and we are now approaching to 1.1 million subscribers, so I appreciate you. Remember, subscription is free and it goes a long way into making sure that our content gets to reach as many people as possible. And now, of course, without further ado, please allow me to let my guest today introduce himself. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Kitambo nyinyi mlikuwa mnasalimiana aje?
Mambo.
Poa. Story.
And I am actually trying to remember because we had our change during those days. Na nimesahau.
Hey.
Na ilikuwa sasa. Ilikuwa sana sasa. That was all the things that we used to say. But now things have really changed. There is a new generation with a new language.
Yeah.
You have got to catch up. Jana nilisema ati ni kipindi, leo nimeambiwa kipindi ni ongo. So, I am not sure that what I wanted to say was exactly that.
Yes.
But it is in that neighborhood.
Times are changing.
A lot.
And we have to change with the time.
Otherwise you become irrelevant.
Really good to have you on the show. But for anyone maybe that is catching you for the very first time, could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Kioni. Na mimi ni Mkenya. Nimekuwa hapa Kenya. I have been in business, I've been employed, sasa kidogo trying a bit of politics and being in the leadership of this country. Been a member of parliament a number of times, maybe 1, 2, 3 times. Na zaidi ni kwamba tunashukuru Mwenyezi Mungu tuko hai. Yeah.
Well, muko high.
Yes.
And that's a powerful thing.
Yes.
But you know, as I said when I was doing my intro, all of us are now saying Kenya ni home. To you, what does Kenya mean to you?
Kenya, to me, other than knowing that after this life there is life after death, and having hope and belief and faith that we'll be part of the eternal life, Kenya is everything else. Tumewekwa hapa na Mwenyezi Mungu. Ametupa haki ya kuwa hapa. Ametupa akili ya kuhakikisha kwamba kesho ukiondoka umeiacha ikiwa nzuri kidogo kuliko vile uliipata. Ametupa uwezo wa kuwa na watoto. Now you have a responsibility to those children and the grandchildren, and you have some thinking of some hope of what you'd want them to be like after you have left. So it is a place, Kenya is where, and we have to work hard, all of us, to ensure that it is better than the way it was handed to us by our fathers and our forefathers. Yes.
As a member of parliament, if the people who you've represented are watching, what's one thing they can say you've done right by them?
I quite don't know. It's something that I really want to hear, listen to them. What I can say is that when I had the opportunity of representing them, I spent all my energy and time perhaps trying to do something that they can remember. I don't know how to quantify it, but one of the things that I'm proud of is that before I was a member of parliament, it was difficult for me to come across a person who say he has come from Daragwa. Today, there are very many. I come across young people who come over and say, we just want to say thank you. You helped us in one way or another. While the intention was never to get people, running all over and saying thank you to me or to you, it encourages you to know that at least you did something that touched somebody else. But there are many things that we did. One of the things that I am happy about, I don't know whether the other ones are happy about it, is having an opportunity to provide a cemented floor to mothers and fathers who are 75, 80 years and above. Ideally, those who may have been involved in one way or another in the struggle for the freedom of this country. And I took it upon myself, even with a lot of resistance from the government, to implement that project. And I did cement or provide a cemented floor to quite a number of those aged people. And it became impossible for me to go and, be with them. Because it became very emotional. They will be crying, they will be all over, until I also started getting emotional. So what I did is, I would do it and never go anywhere near it. And that is something that I think, while it is something that we did for the people of Daragwans, it's something that kept going through my mind and, reminds me of how much I didn't know that it was going to be this way. But on how much those who elect you depend on you. When I first got to parliament, I had an opportunity of going to a country, it was Norway, and a program that had been funded by the Oslo Foundation or such, an NDI. And I had an interaction with the Prime Minister of that country. He told me that he has been elected to parliament he was now starting his, I think that must have been the 8th term. By that time he had served 35 years. So he was starting the 5th lot to serve 40 years. and asked him how. You know, it's very difficult for a person in Kenya to be able to go to those kind of terms, 8, 9, 10 terms. And he had served as a prime minister. Now he was just an ordinary member of parliament. And he told me one thing that rings in my mind, and how I hope it's something that can guide those who have the opportunity of serving this country. And he said, when you've been elected as a member to represent any unit, those who give you that vote have actually signed off their lives to you. And they depend on you. They hold you with such esteem that they believe that nothing can go wrong with our own in office. And he actually told me, and especially the poor people, you are like the only person they now know who can speak on their behalf and who cannot allow anything wrong to go on when you are there. And that learn, it has gone through my system. And it is something that we as leaders in this country need to have in our veins.
I think so. You know what breaks my heart? Or maybe what I need to ask, what changes? What changes with our people when they go to parliament? When do they become so inhuman? When do they decide it's time to pass this finance bill that is going to affect the same people that trusted you to go there and represent them? What changes in that parliament?
Even before the changes, what hurts me, and it's difficult to say it, it's when we saw our young people in the streets asking for a right to be educated. And we came out and started shooting. And we killed them. So I think it's not easy for one person to bring changes within parliament. Because majority of those in parliament are individuals who are not quite. Majority of those who go to parliament go because they want to buy a big car. They want to move around and say, have a show off. And I say this with a lot of respect to my colleagues. I've seen it. Majority wants to go and get involved in the tender issues. Literally, they go and fuel corruption. Because instead of stopping those activities or oversighting on behalf of the very poor people, they go there and become partakers. And it is not easy to resist. It's not easy to resist. I do not want to take it on against anybody. I remember my first term in parliament, I went with that zeal. We must get something right. And we had scandals. If you go through the history of this country, you see the miscandals that came in sometimes in the year 2008, 2009. And we were offered on the floor. You would be called and told there is this pro forma invoice. Or you need to go is presented somewhere. I don't exactly remember how the scandal was going, but you were given a pro forma invoice. The maize was available at serious board. So you needed to take the invoice to a person who does the milling. He buys the invoice from you at a higher price. And then he goes, presents the invoice, the pro forma invoice to serious board, is given the maize. In that confusion, you will make your 10, 15, 20 million. Just moving one piece of paper from one office to the other. And I remember I said, aye. So at the end of the day is that this maize will then be sold to Kenyans at a higher price because I was able to broker the pro forma invoice. The invoice was being given from a minister's office, Minister for Agriculture, to members of parliament, so that then we agreed to say nothing. See nothing, say nothing.
Who was the
Hear
minister?
nothing. The Minister of Agriculture then is the current president or the current occupier of State House. And again, I said, I will not get involved in this. So some of the people I thought believed in some values, I saw them quickly get bought off. And they benefited from that. That was the first scam that came close to us. And what did we do? Led by Karware Boni, we filed a motion of no confidence. And we were quite a number. But when the day of reckoning came to vote, only 21 of us were left on the list. So it is not easy for you to escape that environment, a very polluted environment. And it always requires a person from the top. Because why was it possible for us to file a motion of no confidence? Because we had the president, Kibaki, who at least you knew if you ran towards his side, you'll get some kind of cover. So the motion saw the light of day. In the confusion, he compromised the other person we thought would have been with us, Raila Amolo Odinga. He was compromised somehow. You remember we had the Grand Coalition government. So I don't know how it is that Raila found himself in that kind of scenario. So the motion was defeated from very many angles. And that is what really changes. The other thing that is there is that when people are now running to be members of parliament, it's less because you want to go and make a change in the lives of those who elected you, but more because you want to make a change to yourself. And that is why you've seen in the current system is a question of who has moved to Karen, who has moved to Ruda. That is like the first assignment. If that becomes what drives you, you will always get it wrong. And I want to tell you, you can be re-elected 100 times on that kind of a platform, but it doesn't end well. And I have seen many of our colleagues in that area. It doesn't end well because you have betrayed the trust that was given to you by the people. So it's gotten to a point where also the people now have completely lost trust in the people they elect. And it's very difficult for them to differentiate between this person and that person. There's a blanket condemnation. I had a discussion 2-3 days ago with one of the Gen Zs. And he was saying, how can we trust you, even you leaders in the opposition? And I was trying to encourage her, that if we do not allow for a convergence of the efforts, very positive efforts, great efforts that have been made by our young people, and they are not young because they are only young because they are younger than I. That's why I use that one. It doesn't mean that they have no capacity to finish anything they want to finish, or I have respect that they have the capacity to do everything. But we are there in politics. They are what they are pushing. There is need for some form of convergence, some real need for having trust between the politicians whom they can single out, and it is their exercise, and the Gen Z, for us to be able to move a pin, so that we are not thrown into a spin every time there is a legitimate push, like the one we had with the Gen Z. You see, they really pushed, and if you ask those who are within the system, they actually agree they had lost it. The Gen Z didn't know that those who were in government had given up and were already looking for ways of taking off. But if they had come together with the politicians, that was going to be something that could easily have been achieved. But again, before that could happen, again, we are thrown into another kipindi of the broad-based government. So these VPDs will continue being thrown to us, and It's unfortunate that it is that the people in power clearly understand that even the Gen Z have some mistrust with the opposition leaders, and they're exploiting those gaps. And if we are able to come together, because every one of us has deficiencies, we all have our problems. We should be able to push this country, because what the Gen Z have done and why it makes me emotional, they actually achieved, or they were on the line of achieving, what even our forefathers fought for during independence. They were holding the values that took the Kimathis to the forest. Those are the values that were driving them in the streets. And they came across the colonialists who killed our forefathers, and they now came and killed these children. And it is actually a very horrifying thing.
It is.
And it is, that's why they need to be encouraged, because the future of this country, I want to tell you that when I saw that, the June 25th, that period, what was being done by the Gen Z and the millennials, it is at that point that I started having hope for this country. I was always asking, how is it that we can lose a country? How can we miss it by this far? Little did I know that there was a generation here that was seeing it all, they could see the broader picture. And by the grace of God, by the help of God, they can see the picture clearer than many of us. And that is why we need to, even those in government, they really need to know that there is nothing that they are going to achieve. They may have intimidated them. They may have suppressed them. It's just for a while.
Just for a while.
The fact that it came from nowhere and caught everybody unawares, as in Kenya and outside this country, tells you that there's something that God is working through that group of people. And it will soon come to fruition. And it is upon us in power, those in power, those in out of power, to ensure that that transition happens. Because it will be for everybody's good. It will be good for even Charlene, the daughter of William Ruto. It will be good for my Jerry, my grandchild, and it will be good for all of us. But it's not easy if you are now part of the Adani, if you are part of all these other scams that we have in the country. You feel threatened, but I can tell you
there is hope.
There is hope. There is certainly hope in this country.
And you're actually the first person, the first politician I've seen remorseful on what happened to our people. And yesterday, something happened that is still bothering my mind. There was this photo, or there was this meeting between the president and our president and the president of Ford Foundation. And the reason I bring it up, it's because it's only 2 months ago that the president came out and said that Ford Foundation, among other people, the Russians and all these people, were financing the protests, because he still fails to understand that these protests can happen without anyone funding them, right? So you are seeing our president shaking hands with people he accused of funding this protest, but then you come back and you remember people like Rex, who lost their lives because after that statement, everyone that started fighting us, because I was part of the protests, right? Everyone that started fighting, people even you have the Gen X, I think they wanafandiwa tu. There was that talk about being funded, that people completely lost faith in a movement that was owned by its people. So when we see our president gaslight even the policemen into believing that these people have been funded, kill them, do whatever you want to do with them, then the same president goes and shakes hands with this president of this foundation. What does this tell us about the kind of person that is leading us? What does this say about the president?
You see, when you have people in leadership, and I go back because this is also in Parliament, is in Senate, people without a conscience is very dangerous. I am aware that the Ford Foundation pushes for exactly what Gen Z was pushing for. They were not involved, but they believe in good governance. They believe in freedom of expression, of association. They believe that people issues of picketing, and to take on a national platform and lie to Kenyans, damage our reputation even in international platforms or in the eyes of such organization. It is for that reason, and Kenyans don't know, that the Ford Foundation and the Americans said, until he goes and apologizes in person to Ford Foundation, all will not be well between our relationship and the Americans. So what he was doing yesterday, again, trying to make it like a kipindi, he was being treated like the criminal he called us. They made it difficult for him. It's only that we were not told the whole story because of that diplomatic etiquette and the rest. But he had gone there literally to kneel and say, I am sorry for having lied or implicated your organization into the shenanigans of State House. And this is not a good thing. And that is why I am happy, because we have a generation of people who can be able to dig and establish the truth. That was a very humiliating position for us as Kenyans. Your own president is being made to go and literally say sorry for having lied. And it happened again in Germany, when he lied that he agreed with the German president that we will be exporting 250,000 Kenyans, and the German president had to say that was not a position that was accurate. So it is actually an example of to the Gen Zs and millennials and even the Alpha of what you should never do when you're in a position of authority. An exact example of how a leader should never behave. This thing of lying without blinking is a very scary thing. And I want to tell you, it's very horrifying that it's normal for us when you have young people, not young because he is in his 40s, Bob Jaggi, taken away from the family, from a pregnant wife, almost delivering, for a whole 32 days. And he's brought back to a point where you literally almost want to take the person through being told by the members of the family, reorientating life to how you do things in life. We have the brothers, the long-term brothers, Asmil and Jasma, also being taken away. And we as Kenyans, we are still going home like everything is normal. How many other families cannot account for where their children are? And they are now very scared of even speaking out, because there is a killer squad that is this country. And I saw Kanga. Is it the new IG is called Kanga? Mm-hmm. Kanja, not Kanga. Kanja. And even the gentleman, the other one who was sentenced to 6 months imprisonment for contempt of court. And you almost sympathize with them, because this killer squad is not quite, in my understanding and the information we have, is not a squad that is under the police command. I dare say that I believe that is why Kome resigned, because he had people who had a different command, and he is being held responsible for the mess in this. And the only person who can tell us what is happening is the president. And that is why we want the international, because this is beyond now our system here. You can jail this guy. He has nothing. He doesn't know where Bob is. He is at another gang of people moving around in Subarus. And when he was accusing Ford Foundation for funding the agency, we were also put on the list. I personally had to go into hiding. Not one day. And it's so he was looking for who can I blame for all this. And that's why I'm saying that it's just a matter of time before what God's intended for this country to happen will happen. If you see a person who is in power, he has all the agencies at his disposal, and he gets it so long, he cannot even get to understand there is no funding. This was a very organic thing huyo ni mtu amefungwa macho na Mwenyezi Mungu. Na hakuna kitu tutafanya tumufunue. We will be in vipidis in this country until the time comes when God then says it is now proper to have this transition. It will be peaceful and we'll move on with the country that was given to us without us going the Somali way. But for the parents of anybody in the millennial Gen Z, support those people. Be with them. If they call us out in the streets, let's be there. This is not man's doing. This is God's doing.
So you are admitting, number one, there is a whole killer squad out there.
There is. They fired at us live bullets when we had maandamano under Azimio. But this is even a more refined group and more organized, is broadened. They are all over. The abductions are going on. Intimidations are going on. I am aware of the Gen Zs who would want to travel out of the country, and when you get to the airport, if they take your telephone number and then you seem to have called any of the persons they suspect was leading maandamano, you are held within the airport, back and forth, trying to find out how they can either abduct you or implicate you. So there is really something that needs to be undone in this country. But we all need to be aware of it because no one individual can be more powerful than Kenyans. And that's why I'm also saying about even this issue of impeachment that is being thrown around of Gachagua. To me, is still another kipindi. It's meant to keep us, especially those who come from the mountain, busy so that they can perhaps...
sympathize?
The sympathy will go to Gachagua, but that opportunity gives Ruto an opportunity to reorganize and see how to manage us. Whether opportunity will present itself so that he can manage us for him to survive 2027. I tell you, for me, I believe that if any one of them was, if there was anything to be done with the impeachment, it should be for the entire system. That's why we are in court to ask that we as Kenyans be given an opportunity to express our thoughts on the issue of impeachment. That is done through a referendum. If the High Court then says the Constitution provides that IEBC should provide a referendum, an opportunity for all Kenyans to come and vote whether to impeach the entire government or not. It is there in the Constitution. We have very senior lawyers arguing it in court. Then the impeachment should be there for the entire government.
All right, let's go back a little. Let's talk about Gachagua, right? Because we witnessed, this interview where now we are seeing something similar happening. We are put in this situation where we are meant to believe that things are not right between him and Ruto, which now takes people back to what was there between Ruto and Uhuru, and people start, sympathizing with someone like Gachagua. First and foremost, as Kioni, what do you think of Gachagua?
We were with him in Bunge, and himself and others, and they now, when a Kenyan can list them, took it upon themselves to spread falsehoods and spread hatred among the people within the mountain, and also took it upon themselves to ensure that they told things that were untrue, and especially towards our former head of state and the family. And it was a very well calculated move, because that was very difficult for us who were in Jubilee, believed in what we were trying to achieve. We may not have achieved what Kenyans want, but we believed we were making genuine effort. Uhuru was making genuine effort to live a better Kenya. It became very difficult for us to counter. And they were able to move the whole country, and especially Mt.Kenya, to a point where it was now almost very difficult to mention the name of Uhuru or Jubilee. And we kept telling them, even in parliament, this uongo yenu hii hata itakuja kuwakura nyinyi wenyewe. Mutaingia naye na pia itawakura. It is the same team, led now by Gachagua, that is now being put through motions by William. So for me, what I think is that he is gullible. He falls for very easy things that you can see through in politics, because you must avoid being used as a mouthpiece to push messages that you don't believe in. If you ask me why I have been pushing, it's because it has been him pushing with Ruto. I literally was left alone pushing for what it is that Uhuru was doing and what Jubilee stood for. Literally left alone. I'll tell you why I believe in what I hope he totally believes in what he's doing and what he has been doing. So what is happening now is that the same team that was used to spread hatred is again being used to ensure that the mountain is divided. So is the script. It is the old script that is continuing, only that we've gone to another chapter. A chapter that, again, Mt.Kenya people have fallen for, some of them, because they are showing sympathy too. I say this, I do not want Gachagua impeached, because any impeachment should be for the two. That's why we went out to maandamano with Azimio. That's why I was wearing the sufuria and they called me Mogoroki. I was happy with Ogoroki to ensure the message is clear. Mine was that there is nothing good that will come from this system. Little did I know that at one point they will come and shoot our children. That hurts me. I never imagined. So what we were pushing for, and why it is very difficult for me to sympathize with that whole game, is I have not heard them ask who shot Lex. Why was he killed? That's not the agenda. I didn't hear them ask for Bob Jagi or the Wrongton brothers. I've not heard them say that this funding system, the university funding system, is killing the hustler. Mm-hmm. I've not heard them. The hustler, in quotes, that this has come to ensure the poor person who depends on you, who asks for his vote, has completely lost it. I've not heard them complain about the sale of our airport. That is the reason that is part of being a citizen of this country, because these are assets we own. When they are sold, your citizenship is reduced. They are selling our monuments, KICC, and even the Kenyatta statue. I have not heard them. I never heard them say a word when Uhuru was being invaded, including his own farm, when he was being insulted, when his own sons were being implicated with guns. Guns were going to be planted in his own home. I never heard them say anything. So when they get into this thing and they now come and tell us they are being impeached, while I can tell you, Ruto does not have the numbers to impeach Gachagua. So this is a kipindi. It is meant to achieve the sympathy that is in the mountain. You have heard them in all those rallies. Did you hear any of them talk about their Daracha children? Mothers who still cannot tell what happened. If you are that heartless that all you think about is I'm going to lose a salary, you honestly don't deserve to be in employment. And I'm saying this, if you really believe that we have a person in State House leading a regime that needs to go home, jump out. Do not help us to fight him when you're inside. Kuja nje, tusukumane nayo tukiwa nje. Come and be part of us. Don't eat there and tell us you're helping us here. And that's why I don't believe in a broad-based government. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in short, you also don't believe in what Raila is doing?
No, I don't at all. I have not hesitated to say that that was the greatest betrayal. It was actually one of the saddest points in my life in opposition. When I saw somebody we thought, with all his weaknesses, kind of now we stood a chance to undo this together with him, to undo the government together. And to see him one day walk away from us like that, kidogo tu, na harudi, Hiyo ilichangaza mimi na akaenda. Sasa hii naona huko India, namuona huko kila pahali anatembea. Sana unauliza tena hata kama anaenda China ni kura gani iko ya EU? Huko Jerumani, sasa nimuona huko tena pale ingine. Hata yeye ameambukizwa hii mambo ya kutembea tu ovyo ovyo, unapanda ndege tu na kwenda, unapanda pale na kwenda. Hapana hiyo. So it was and that's why we are trying to pick up the pieces. For those in ODM who are still part of Azimio or part of the opposition, we are happy about them. We have the young men like Babu Owino, Sifuna and others. We still know that there is nothing that can be salvaged from KK. And it's a matter of time before they also break away.
All right. Yes. And you speak so highly of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. But then there are people who will tend and disagree and say Uhuru left this country in a far worse situation than he found it, right? First and foremost, why do you believe in him and what he tried to do? And when people say, no, Kenyatta was not all that innocent, what do you say?
One is that there is no person who is perfect. And when you're in leadership, you get a few things right, a few things wrong. So that is a healthy debate. And it's a debate that is useful for those who want to become leaders tomorrow. So that you have all these leaderships that we have had from Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki, Uhuru, Ruto, and put them there. And see which one of them, where can you pick one item that you'd think you can use to combine and move on and help us. I have sat very closely with Uhuru, and especially after. I got to even know him more. And remember, we were with him in Bunga even 2008, even when we had the tribal crashes. And I want to tell you something that Kenyans don't know. When, maybe they know, but let me repeat it. When we were being killed, Mt.Kenya people were being killed in Rift Valley. I was driving through all those areas from Uku Deep all the way to Nairobi. And I got to Dagoretti. And I saw how our young people were preparing to deal with any other person who was within them who was not a Kikuyu. And it got clear to me, if this happens, the country is gone. At that point, I asked myself, who is this one person we can run to now without an appointment? And who can come and talk to these young people, and they will agree to hold on as we try and look for a solution. They came to Uhuru. We were not familiar with each other by any measure that time. So I reached out to Lewis Guyai, who was the area member of parliament, and I knew they had a thing together because they were in Kanu together. I was never in Kanu. And we went to Uhuru's home. We found him there in the middle of many other things. And I and Guyai were able to tell Uhuru, please, leave your house now. Let us go towards Dagoretti. Ile iko taumana. We will lose this country kabisa. Our young people, if they do what I have heard them saying they are going to do, we are done. And we left. Nobody went back to his car. Tukatoka tu. That is the photo you see being brought at ICC when he was pleading with the young people. Tafadhali, nawaomba. Mutige kioduge. Niguo, that.
Don't do a thing.
Don't do a thing. That is Uhuru. And that heart is actually the heart that was in State House for 10 years. You see, people don't know, and I would want somebody to come and table a different thing. When we talk of demolitions, yes, demolitions were done during Uhuru's time. But I would want to see that person whose house was demolished or business was demolished, who was not compensated. And he didn't talk about it. Why? Because now the constitution allows us to demolish as government, yes, but you must have compensation, prompt. And that person must be given alternative accommodation immediately. Because Hakujeka pale bila serikali kujua. Hajaishi pale bila serikali kujua. Na ni jukumu ya serikali kuhakikisha kwamba watu wote, ni kweli tunataka mabarabara makubwa, lakini pia wale ambao lazima wahamishwe, they be compensated. So there are many things that Uhuru did that he was not able to talk about them. And I think one of his weaknesses was that when he would call people to tell them what he had achieved, it's like he was already getting angry. Can't you see what I have achieved? Can't you see where I'm going? And for that reason, when you are talking to the voters, they again see, huyu amekuja tena kutugobanisha. So that may be an area that required a lot of work. But it also required us to help him, and it was not easy either. But I think the other area that really let us down, where he had a lot of hope, was the church. He thought people would naturally go and let people know what is being done. Because wewe ni Mkristo, unaamini mambo ya ukweli, huwezi enda ukadanganyana. That also betrayed him, and he felt very lost. But that doesn't mean that everything went on well. There were those people who were still stealing during his time. And he has said it, washikwe, wafungwe. There are things that we wanted done that were not done. But now if you compare what is happening today and what he was doing, maybe what he was doing, people may have been happier with Kibaki. But it will be good to find out whether people are happier with Ruto now than when what Uhuru was doing. When he is not there, we can actually see all these mega projects. And it's important to say this because country grows in stages. Kibaki found us almost corrupt in all sectors. And he worked to bring back institutions and did a little bit of infrastructural developments. One of the major things he did is the Thika superhighway. So he was able to get us on a trajectory of growth. It was necessary, and let me say this, it is during his time that LAPSSET was conceived. What was the argument of Kibaki? The Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, all the way to Uganda railway line. You see that economic corridor had sustained the country for 100 years. It was not possible for this country to continue growing using the same one economic corridor. That is how LAPSSET was conceived, because there was need to create another economic corridor to help countries, to help Kenyans learn another 100 years, 150 years. What does that mean? Major infrastructural developments needed to be done. The SGRs that you are seeing, the express highways and the rest. So a lot of that work was, a little of it was done during Kibaki's time. Most of that work was done during Uhuru's time. It is incumbent upon those who come after them to now use these major infrastructural developments to spur economic growth so that Kenyans can now feel the benefits of those. But what has happened? When we got in, everything was stored and there was blame game and all those. Is correct. Uhuru borrowed 6.7 trillion shillings. When you bring on board the 1.9 trillion shillings inherited from Kibaki. But that was for a period of 10 years, 6.7 trillion shillings. William has borrowed 5.2 trillion shillings for a period of 2 years. Where is the expressway? Where is the SGR? Where are the new Mau Mau roads? What is it that we've done with this money? So he had his deficiencies without doubt. But honestly, if you compare what we are doing and what he did, I would rather be associated with what Uhuru did than what is being done by William and team. Yes.
You seem to talk to Uhuru a lot. Is that true?
I do talk to him a lot because one is we are in the same party with him. Two is I was literally left as the only person who was, even those who were very close went to their own businesses. I do ask him, and he also asks me when he's not around, what is it that is going on? Where are we going? And I want to say this, his major concern is that we don't drift back to where we were 2007, 2008, where we from the mountain have behaved in a manner that allows other communities to look at us versus them. That would be the joy of some people in government today. And he says, can you wake up, help the community never to get back there again? Because it can be very, very painful for the country. And the other concern is, those programs, he had the social support systems. And we were told subsidizing is being naive economically. While it is a cost to the economy, it is what must be done, yet again, for people to be able to wake up and sleep in the evening. You must read a mama, you must inua jamii, kazi mitaani must be brought back. You must subsidize some of these items that are being given to Kenyans, including cost of energy and the rest. Not because it is the most viable thing to do economically, but it is the thing that you must do to Kenyans, because Kenyans must also be able to be alive for them to ever benefit from whatever it is that you want to do in the long term. Yes.
What you want to accomplish.
Yes, yes.
Let's talk about the mountain.
Mountain
Politics.
Na iko milima mingi, wanasema moja tu.
Moja. Wanasema moja tu. Na hii moja ni Mount Kenya.
Na milima ni mingi. Yes.
Why do you think they specifically speak about this one in particular?
Mountain, for the longest time possible, Moi was able to hide the truth from Kenyans, that the mountain is populous, and then the mountain defines the direction the country takes, economically and politically. It came out, not during Uhuru's time, but it was laid bare by William Ruto himself without knowing. It is the votes from the mountain that made him president. And he knows it is the votes from the mountain that will send him home. It is now no longer a secret that the mountain alone has a command of up to 7 million votes. If you are able to get one block of 7 million votes, you will need one other community, because we are still thinking as communities, even as Gen Zs say they are tribalist, communities still are a base of mobilization in this country. You only need one or two other communities and you're in power. So the mountain is going to be a nightmare, not just to William, but even to those of us in the opposition. If there is a oneness of mind in the mountain, that then says we do not want William at the helm, another community join that, because they will be able to attract others, then you are home. Whether you are the chairman of Chepkati, or you are Chepkati yourself, or you are the chairman of IBC, it does not matter what technology you would want to bring into the rigging, you will be home. And for that reason, one of the tactics that is now being employed, which was again used by Moi, is divide and rule. When Moi knew he was going to lose elections 1992, using the intelligence system, unknown to both of them, Kibaki and Matiba were made to run, each one of them. And that is the only way Moi came to power, with a 31% of the votes. The other 69% of the votes was with Kibaki and Matiba, in that order. So what now has happened, and this is why it is very scary, is that the Kenyans have gotten to know that fact. If economically we are doing poorly in the mountain, the country doesn't do well. And it's not because we are better than any other, but there's a lot of economic activities within the mountain that has a heavy bearing on the amount of revenue that you collect. So when the mountain becomes unhappy, it is very difficult to ignore it. And he seems to have irritated the mountain without, because he had estimated the intelligence. The fact that he was able to lie to us, give us fake promises, and people followed him and decided to turn their anger towards Uhuru and Jubilee. he never knew that would turn around and become something that he cannot deal with. And that is why you'll hear him, I think the other day he was in Kisumu, he started acknowledging that Uhuru did this. Uhuru did this. Why? Because he is trying to endear himself to the mountain. And again, without any design from anybody, one of the key influencers in the mountain now remains Uhuru Kenyatta. Even Rigathi himself eventually gave up his night pursuits of being the kingpin for the mountain. And he declared during the day that he now knows there is a kingpin. Not that Uhuru has ever claimed it, but a kingpin is a person who consciously or unconsciously you give respect and you will pay attention to what he says. Not because you like him, but because there is some natural attraction, some track record, and some sway more than from any other person. Yes.
So do you think the mountain regrets not having listened to Uhuru?
There is a very heavy sense of regret, and there is also a very heavy sense of responsibility that is eating us, because if we had not voted in that way, perhaps we would not have gone down this quickly. Again also, apparently, it's like everything he was saying, because we now have it on the social media, has come to pass. And when that happens, it becomes very difficult for you to, just badmouth such a person. Because he wasn't saying it with anything else, he was just cautioning us. Tafadhali, tafadhali, tafadhali. Don't go this side. Don't go this side. And telling us to go to Raila, he was never also saying that Raila is 100%. But you look at the choices available. And allow me to say this, which may sound, I don't know how much I'm disclosing, but let me say it too. Even before getting to Raila, I am personally aware that he had this discussion with Matiangi. Yes, he had interested Matiangis. Come over, take charge of this country. It requires the caliber you're thinking in it.
For real?
And I sat in meetings with Matiangi and others to try and prepare for his presidency. So there are many people than one who have let us down, because Matiangi didn't put his foot forward.
What did he say?
He may not have said what I may not want to say what he said, but he wasn't available eventually.
Matiangi was not available for presidency?
He wasn't.
So you are saying a president is made. You are saying you people you select, you choose carefully.
You may not do that, but you have that responsibility as a leader. You have your success also is marked by how you pass over power. Something else that you need to know: when Uhuru was going to Kasarani, he had a discussion with us in Azimio. Because there are those of us in Azimio, and especially who are leaning more towards the one side of the political divides within the many parties that we have in Azimio, that was asking, you mean you are actually going to hand over power? Even when we think something happened to the servers? But that is leadership. He said, I will go and hand over power. We will deal with the aftermath. Because if we had not handed over power, that would have been the beginning of the end of a country known as Kenya. So while you would say, how can you do this? It also requires leadership. He went there, and actually he told us, I'm going there, I'm going to hand over power. I know I will be humiliated, but it is best for this country. Mimi nitaenda nipatiane, nikimaliza, nitatoka, niende nyumbani. That's exactly what he did. He handed over. After that, he left. And you come in with the motorcade, you leave with a lead car and a chase car. And that's what he did. And I remember He may have gone home, but either the same day or the following day, we were together with the other leaders. Him explaining and trying to tell us why was it necessary for him to do what he did. In retrospect, he did the correct thing. So I think I don't want to get lost, but it was very important for him to do that. And part of what you do as a leader is to ensure that there is transition. You always see the team that can be able to carry on with your vision. Even if you are to vary it, you know they will not be lost for too long. Today, we know that when Kibaki was in power, he was using 2030 vision, 2030. Uhuru came and picked some 4 items within vision 2030. So we were still on the same trajectory. Which vision is leading us as a country?
All right. So if I'm not wrong,
Niambie kama kunayo. And the Bible says a country without a vision will perish.
Will perish.
So we do not know. It is an autopilot. Mwende, mwingie Chakahora, mutoke pande hiyo, mwingie Daracha, mutoke pande hiyo, mwingie Kware.
Yes.
Very, you know, things we really are directionless, radarless, leaderless, planless, formless, everything less.
It's formless. It's formless. But anyways, just to see, just to make sure I get it right. So if Uhuru had not backed Raila, he would have backed Matiangi. There were chances Matiangi would have been backed by the mountain.
Let me tell you so that these things stop being very difficult for people. When we were with Kibaki, myself, Derito Mureithi, George Amwe, and Abd Kadir, who said you never want to be called a Mheshimiwa anymore in life.
Good.
Because what took into parliament, he again discovered this is not possible for him. And he said, I would never run again. And I don't want you to call me Mheshimiwa. You can call him one day and interview him. Very interesting. Young, now an old man. We would go to Kibaki, the 4 of us, and ask Kibaki, mzee, uchaguzi ni mwisho wa mwaka. Where are we? Who is it that we rally behind? And Kibaki will say, no. Hao wenyewe hawa watatoa mtu mmoja wao. So what was Kibaki doing? He would organize meetings, abrupt meetings without knowing. So you find yourself in a meeting, you are with Saitoti, you are with Uhuru, you are with Kalonzo, you are with Musalia. The only person he never allowed to come into that meeting was William. And said here, he may not have said in clear words, but he never allowed him to come there. Moi was even clearer. He said, kijana mchunge sana. So these people, and he was saying among you, tafuteni mmoja wenyu, ataweza sukuma hii kitu mbele. The same thing with Uhuru. He would look at his cabinet, he would look at everybody else, and he had, I can tell you again, because I sat in 1 or 2 meetings, where Matiangi, he may not have been sent by Uhuru, but I know we were trying to get Matiangi to get his feet moving in that direction. But we will leave a retreat, go to a place, Matiangi will do 1 meeting in Kisii, then I think he doesn't see people jumping nicely, he disappears. Could be, you never know. Siasa naye si ya kila mtu. And I'm not saying that he's not capable, but maybe
do you think he's capable? No.
That time, Matiangi, if he wants to, I like him because, one, he says what he believes in, and he pushes what he believes in. And he doesn't mince words. He never tells you it is Laney when he can see it is sunny. He will tell you. I admire that kind of leadership.
Would you rally behind him?
I will be available for him. Yes. But now, what is important in this country is that we need a team. He will be a very good person in a team. This country requires a team. Of people. We have Kalonzo. Now we've been moving around with Kalonzo, trying to see whether we can rally something around him. If we were to get Matiangi there and others there and everybody there,
you think
it would be very, very good. Team. But also, of course, the worst thing would be for anybody to come and say, nimekuja na mjue mimi ndio mkubwa yenu. That is what Kibaki was always saying. Hiyo ni makosa. By the way, you may need to get somebody to tell you how much it took to get Uhuru to run in 2012.
What did he take?
He wasn't in it. Hakuna.
So why?
He had even signed us off with Musalia. I was the running mate for Musalia 2013.
By the way, is it true that
Just before you ask that question, because
you
I
know
the
it?
question. He had signed off, and it required the whole community and many more people to come and tell him, what is it? This does not belong to you. It belongs to us. Learn. That is when he came and said, madimoni ilikuwa imeniingia kidogo na nilikuwa nimepatia na hii kitu. So he started learning.
But
so it is not it's not an easy thing for you to jump in. Let me say a very controversial thing. I also think you require more. The person I've seen dying to become president of this republic was William. He is now. When we were running with Azimio, I did see that death of want in Raila. I didn't see that.
It's a must.
I did. Yeah, I did. If he had it other times, this time he was available as a president. But he was not the Raila that we thought we had, who would fight
for it.
I didn't see that. I did vote for Musalia. I think that's the question you wanted to ask.
No.
I voted for Musalia.
I wasn't going to ask that.
Let me answer that.
What are you answering?
Let me say that because
Clarify.
It's something, not even clarify, because it is something that many people have said it, and I like putting it clear. If you ever want to know the truth, you can always go to the IBC.
Yeah.
You then know that where I vote and whether there were votes there. What they did, our detractors, of course they are always there, is to create a fictitious polling station and then showed that it has 0 votes. And I went to court and sued everybody who ever held or broadcasted that lie. And I was paid some money. And there are some people who are still struggling to pay for damages for having tried to spoil my name.
Run with that narrative.
And if there's anybody else who'd want to be added on the list, I would be more than willing. But be prepared to pay some little money. But maybe there was a question you wanted to ask. I have answered the wrong one.
Well, no, it's okay. So what do you feel about Musalia now? Given that you had faith in him and you were even his running mate, what do you feel about him now?
I told Musalia one time, actually after our campaigns with him, 2013, I told him that you'll only become president in this country if you rally behind Raila. And Raila exits from power and hands over his block to you. You are the natural hire. That's my experience when we were campaigning in Western Kenya and in Nyanza with him. I also told him it makes no sense for me to try anything else other than rallying behind Uhuru. These are the realities of life. There is being an idealistic in politics and also being pragmatic. And we agreed. So when I saw Musalia with William, I actually asked him, are you sure that William will not bring your political career to an end? Because he has now brought you to below his level, while you are above his level. You are ranking ahead of him. But again, in politics, there is a lot of political engineering. I believe that he is in the wrong system. The Musalia I knew is not the Musalia I'm seeing today. Because this log system did not find him in office. He went with it into office.
Oh.
But yes, because he understood who it is that he was working with. Without doubt, he still is managing to kind of maintain his image. He's avoided unnecessary controversies. But I do not know how damaged the good will be after the fall of this regime. Yes.
Okay. Not a lot of hope there.
There's a lot of work to do after working with this regime. Yeah, there is a lot of work you have to do.
All right.
Yeah, that's why it's always good to pick your members of your team.
Carefully.
It's not easy. However careful you are, you'll always get a few things that you don't like. There are those whom I consider not possible to work with, but they also consider you not a person possible to work with. So iko namna hiyo kwa siasa.
Kwa siasa. Turudi hapo kwa divide and rule, because now people are saying, you know, there is this now fight between Gachagua and Kindiki. Some of the people in the mountain prefer Gachagua, some of the people prefer Kindiki. What do you think? One,
they are cut from the same cloth. They are all in UDA, they are all in KK. Kenyans are saying they are fed up with KK. It doesn't matter which player you try to bring to play number 9 or whatever position you think. They all belong to the same team. It will be, what is important is to look at that team vis-a-vis this other team. And this is the team we are now seeing. You are either in Operation Okoa, Kenya, or Operation Okoa Sakayo. They are in Operation Okoa Sakayo. Theirs is how do we survive 2027. Ours is how can we get this country to answer to the aspirations of Kenyans? How can we get this country to get back the education system that is functioning? How do we answer to the challenges that are coming with the CBC, the junior secondary, and all those things?
The healthcare.
How can you bring back universal healthcare without the kind of cost that I've seen being introduced through the chief? How do we deal with this nonsense of unaffordable housing that is being constructed on public lands using public resources, money cut from or deducted from people's salary, and yet sold at a market rate? How do you get sense out of all these things? That is the Operation Okoa Kenya. That's the corner we belong to. So there will be attempts to try and see who can be able to cut a mountain. I think one of the things that is clear is that if Rigathi is not able to get a following, sympathy is there, but can you get these people to come and vote on our side? That's the question. Or can Kindiki bring the Meru, Embu, and Tharaka, the 800,000 or whatever number of votes that are there, to remain outside the 7 million? That's the whole ballgame. And I believe that none, because they have the intelligence, none seems to be making sense. Yes.
Even
and why? Because the William that we know has already seen that what he was scheming to achieve through AU is not working. The votes that he thought he's put in his basket from Nyanza and Western, ameziangalia na ameona si nyingi vile alikuwa anataka. Kuna zile zimekataa kuingia kwa saduku yake.
So AU was a plan?
AU was a kipindi.
You don't think Raila stands a chance?
Well, he stands a chance because he's looking for it, but is it a chance that can become a chance that is useful? I wish him well, but it is a big gamble.
So do you think...
The closest we came was through Amina. The efforts that were made by Uhuru are such that I cannot see those efforts being made by William. I cannot. I saw it. And it requires that level of brokerage. You would need to convince the presidents that there is something good for them in the candidate you are pushing forward. And it is a very difficult matrix. You have Arabs, you have Muslims, you have Francophone, you have Agrophones, you have people who are non-aligned like Kenya, you have issues of Israel and Palestinian influencing, you have Ukraine and Russia, the position you've taken, there is Algeria, there is Morocco, there is Sahel, and you need to see how have we behaved ourselves for the last 2 years around those issues. Those issues will directly affect the vote, that you either go to Raila or go elsewhere. Yes.
Do you have a favorite candidate?
I don't know. I know Raila only. I know there is a candidate from Djibouti who seems to be posing quite some challenge. But my candidate is Raila. But sometimes it's good to be realistic.
Objective.
Yes, and we had these discussions when we were in Azimio, and we asked him. I remember that question was posed to him by one of us. Are you sure about this? Are you sure about this? And are you really sure about your broker number one? Are you an agent? And I tell you where my suspicion was again taken to another level. You have heads of state in Nairobi launching later, and before it's done, you are launching yourself in Kisumu. And you take 3 days there. I thought from there, they were going to fly to the capitals, to those other presidents who never made it here. Kubi alikuwa anaenda capital city of Kisumu. Kisumu Dara. Yawa. Ai.
Politics ikuchokeshangi?
One of the other things that I'm happy about politics, or I'm happy about having joined politics. I joined politics when we were at the height of Mugeki. And within a couple of days of having announced that I want to run, I was put in. I was put in Darawa police station. A letter was led. It had come from Nairobi, and I was accused as the financier of Mugeki in that region. And I was put in a very naive manner. You know, hii mambo ya kutrust watu, because the OCS just called me. And the previous day we had a confrontation with the former member of parliament then. And he had security guards, I didn't have any. And in that confrontation, buduki zikatolewa. So when I was called to the police station the following morning, I thought it was to address that issue, and I felt aggrieved. So I was actually going to the OCS to say, this happened to me yesterday. So, which I still did. And then he said, by the way, hata kwa sababu nikuite, ni kwa sababu kuna hii maneno ingine. Kuna hii barua tumepata, na imetoka kutoka kwa wale wanafanya upelelezi, na inaonekana wewe na Mungeki muko sawa. Na wewe ndio unapatiana pesa za Mungeki. And he gave me several dates where he said that I had sittings with Mungeki. And I told him, whoever it is that has written this letter has done some good job. Kwa sababu ni kweli. Hizo siku nilikuwa hapo na hapo na hapo. But I never knew that it is an offense in this country for me to look for votes from members of my constituency, whether they belong to Mungeki, whether they belong to Chirokoro, whether they are Madi people. They all have votes. And I'm looking for votes to represent them in parliament. So, nakubaliana na yale yameandikwa hapa. Na nataka kukuhakikishia nikitoka hapa, I am going to a place called Equator, where I am told it is rumored to be a place where we have quite a number of those young people in that sect. And I'm going to ask for votes from them, sahi. So you'd rather tell me what you want to do with me, finish with you, but I need these guys to give me votes because I also want to represent them in parliament. I don't know what happened, but of course, whatever was following followed. But it is almost like the last I heard of the case. With one or two, whatever, it eventually died. What did I do when I got to parliament? I moved parliament to form a select committee on unlawful groupings in the country, where we were 22 of us. We went around this country, talked to who are the Mugekis in Kororo, the Republican Army. There were many Baghdadi boys. There were very many groups. We would talk to all of them. We talked to Mainajenga at committee. That time he had been jailed or detained there because of being a member of Mugeki. And we filed a report in parliament. We even called the members of the sect to parliament. They came to room 8. And when they came to room 8, I still remember how emotional they became. All those fellas you think are made of steel were all in tears. And what were they saying? They said, we never thought one day we could ever enter to a place like Bunge. I don't know, there is a guy called Juguna, something Juguna, who then told me, the things I've told you, my life is in danger. Because they had already given us a lot of information which was contained in the report. And I referred the report in Bunge. Shortly thereafter, the young man was killed, was shot dead. But out of it, what did we get? We were able to join together with Saitoti, who was then the Minister for Interior, and we came up with a law that I think we now call it the Gangster Act or something. I can give you. And that in that act, we then provided that you will have to prove that a person actually belongs to an unlawful group. And we provided a penalty. So because what were the police saying? We are not able. We have no offense that has been defined which we can charge these people in court. That's why they were shooting them and killing them. And from that day to date, there has never been any more shooting of Mogekis. These extrajudicial killings that we are seeing, exactly what was happening with the Mogekis of those days, has come back with William. This KK regime, it disappears. I tell you, that is one thing I will always be happy because I achieved it. And we went all the way to Brazil, where we have the paferas or something. I think that's what they are called. They have a similar. They had a similar scenario in this country. And what did the Brazilians do? They created our NYS there, which corrected all these people, put them in training, and then put them over kind of a stipend. They also introduced tokens or some form of payment to families where these young men were coming from. That is contained in that document. And it is the same kind of concept that was taken when NYS was then revived. Revived during Kibaki's time. Kibaki gave us a lot of support. Revived during Kibaki's time and funded properly during Uhuru's time. But against watu waliiba kweli kweli wakati wa Uhuru. That is when they were given 23 billion na mtu moja akakuja akang'oka na yote. And the program seems to have, maybe lost direction. But eventually, that was the concept. And I'm not saying that it is exactly what they did, but we have that in the report that we filed in Parliament.
When you see all of these politicians that have been named in these scandals, when you see them continue, representing people, but they have a lot of scandals behind them, how does that make you feel? And do you think also the former President Uhuru Kenyatta has a scandal that he needs to answer to the people of Kenya?
I'm not aware of a scandal that follows him, but I have been with him numerous number of times, him saying, take me to court on anything you think I did wrong. Charge me. When they invaded his Northlands farm here, and people are saying it is clubbed and the rest, he went to the point of producing the sale agreement. Sale agreement that was signed between his father, Kenyatta, and the Mzungu who sold that whole piece of land to them. He showed it to us. This is the sale agreement. Not to come to his defense, because again, he's capable of doing it without anybody's help. But the idea is that let everybody who has a scandal be charged in court. That is one thing I keep saying. The next thing is that, again, Kenyans know it. This person has scandals. You've chosen him to give responsibility. Again, it's like, then don't scream moreover. How else did you want that person to behave other than to perpetuate what he believes in? In any case, if you are rewarding him for having taken from you a little while ago, he will come back and take a little more from you, because that seems to be what you reward. But it's not a joy to serve with people you think may not help you achieve what you also believe in. But again, none of us is perfect. We are all together in it. So wewe unakuja na ugonjwa yako na mwingine na ugonjwa yako, mnaomba magonjwa yenu itulizwe, muweze kusaidia Wakenya vile mnaweza fanya.
What do you believe?
Kibaki was telling us, uchana na wanaiba. At one time I went with him to Lagos, and that is the time we had the Lagos embassy. Ilikuwa imekuwa kule, na ile ikine ilikuwa Tokyo, Japan. I mentioned Tokyo because it's the one that was like the cover page for the theft within our embassies. So we are in Lagos in the kwa mkahawa, and I was now, because I was a member of the defense committee, so I took it upon myself to take Kibaki through the theft that had happened by the people who were in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs then, and all that, and the money was being wired to London, lakini haikuji hapa, ilikuwa inapotelea London.
Hey.
And we had on the paper. So Kibaki then looked at me and said, Kioni, watu wanaiba. Na wanaiba. So he was actually telling me, don't spend all your time looking for the thieves. These guys are stealing. Try and do what you can yourself. Alafu uondoke kwa sababu Mwenyezi Mungu hakukuweka ati ufanye hii kazi yote. Fanya ile unafanya kidogo, ondoka. Wacha mwingine akuje. But then he never stopped the agencies from doing their work. But he was not going to do it on behalf of them. You have the constitutional mandate, do it. So those in EACC, DCI, DPPP, kila mtu atajibu mambo yake. You were given that mandate by Kenyans. Did you execute it? But he was not going to behave like the chief prosecutor, no. He knew he had an economic agenda for the country. That clarity of mind is important in leadership.
It is. Yeah. I was going to ask you what you believe in, but also, you know, I'm looking at you, of course, your husband, your father, you have families, you have in-laws, you have people that are surrounding you, and you're saying, you know, your name inatajwa hapa na hapa, you have to hide. First and foremost, how is your family life like, and do they support and advocate for what you do?
I have a lot of support from my wife and my children. A lot. And we occasionally have meetings to discuss these issues and to ask them what do they think. They'll tell you, don't say this. They'll tell you, don't go here. This is not useful. I may overrule them from time to time, or most of the time, I hope not. But it's useful to involve them. Why? Because also we have a system, or when you are in that public office, you also attract all the criticism that comes with it. At times, very harsh. You can be really insulted. And the insults can also be extended to your family. Unakumbuka hii mambo ya Gen Z walisema tuwasalimie. Sasa unaona wanasalimia mpaka familia. So if you're in this thing, it's good to let the family know so that when kama watafika kusalimiwa,
asalimike,
wasija wakapatikana kama wako na jia ya kusalimika. So that is that's a thing that I really want to appreciate my family, my wife in that, and of my brothers also. I need one or two of my sisters. There are those others, of course, who want to throw hands to you and almost condemn you for being where you are. But that is also part of it. I have my mother, 97 years old.
Oh, wow.
Extremely supportive. She's the one who has surprised me most in the recent days because she's so supportive. Even when I was wearing sufuria, saying when people went home to say, hey, mwambie, nasema wacha avae. I know what his grandfather believed in. Huyo ni kama so 97 years old. He was her and my father were desk mates with Kimathi. So there's a history hapo. Tunaweza ongea siku nyingine.
Haya negu. Okay.
Hiyo hapo iko safari nyingine hapo ya hawa. Na hii dunia ya siasa, kwa hivyo mambo mengine yanatoka bali. So I have that support. But getting in politics is not an easy thing. It wasn't easy. I would have gotten into politics a little earlier, but my father was approached by wazee in the village, but he refused, and he didn't disclose it to me. But a little later, then he came to me and told me, sasa wewe unatosha. And I was asking, unaniambia nimetosha nini? And then he never quite said it, pap, but I read between the lines and realized, kumbe ulikuwa umeambiwa mapema ukakataa. And it is good, back in he was my father, so I'm sure he knew he had a better feel than I. So support from the family, I've had it, I can't complain. Has it come with difficulties to the family? Without doubt. If you have to hide, they also are not happy. They are in anxiety. When all the media stations and everybody was making fun when I was running with Musalia, and they said Kioni did not vote for Musalia. It is a thing that it was like nice fun, but it impacts very heavily on your children. So there's a journey that you need to involve them, so that they also get to grow and then take it as fun. Yes.
Do politicians have time for romance?
Yes, it could be reduced, but they do.
So ambiangi mom, kuja nikupeleke pale kidogo.
Well, it cannot be the way you do it if you are not in politics. Yes, it cannot be. And of course, at times also because of too much public attention, the places you go, sasigine, unachunga, you try, and where you may have all the privacy that you want,
yes,
you may not even also be able to pay for it. Kwa hivyo huwezi enda kila siku. Yeah.
Lakini to dates munafanya
kidogo, lakini pia miaka ikifika ingine,
miaka gani?
Unasema unaita kitu ingine au iti date.
Unaita aje? Unaita aje?
Kwa hivyo inakuwa dunia namna hiyo.
Unayako unaita aje?
Unaendelea tu na kusema asante kwa Mwenyezi Mungu. So that is there, but it does affect a lot of, and you have to go out of your way to create it.
Yes.
Out of your way to create time to be available for dinner, even within the house, and it calls for a lot of discipline. Kwa sababu wakati huo mtu mwingine anasema hachukui simu, huyu tumechagua meringa, nini, that kind of thing.
It's a hard way of balancing.
It's not easy. Yeah. But I must thank the people of Daragwa. One of the things I did in Daragwa is that I was able to let people know that hata kama nimechaguliwa, nyumbani niko na ofisi na niko na nyumbani. Msikuja kwa nyumbani, tuende kwa ofisi. And during that time we'll be in office even 9 o'clock in the night, very early in the morning, 8 o'clock, even 7. But they had the respect that they never came to my house to deny me that opportunity. In the rural areas here in Nairobi, they are very civilized Kenyans from Daragwa.
You created a very healthy boundary.
They were very respectful.
Oh wow,
course,
that's nice to hear.
A few of them here and there, but on the whole, I cannot complain anything about them. No.
Okay, it's good. So what do you do for fun?
For fun, I like gymming. I go running sometimes in the bush. I like sports. Na hiyo ingine, I also like watching people dance, but I don't know how to dance. My only dancing style ni ya Raila. Unajua ana style that dances all songs. Yes. Ya kanisa, ya lege, ya nini. So there are also things you learn from these old people.
You gotta love him, you know. You gotta, especially when
so I'm now trying to see whether Kalonzo has a style. But yake kidogo inachanganya na Raila.
Zinaendanisha.
Unaweza ona nikichanganyika kwa sababu ya Kalonzo nyingine iko chini, ya Raila nyingine anachezagia hapo.
So unaweza kuwa hapo katikati. Talking of Kalonzo, do you think you guys now have an official opposition leader?
We do.
Who is he?
We do. Kalonzo is the leader of opposition. With the leader having handed over the leadership of his party to Anyang' Nyong'o, even without him saying, he certainly is not available to Azimio. And as in Azimio, must move on. For the reason that when you go to the books and the records of IEBC or RPP, any other of these political offices, you will see that the organ charged with the opposition or leadership in a minority is Azimio. And those of us who are left in Azimio must discharge that role. That's the role that we are now discharging under the leadership of Kalonzo Musyoka. We see it attracting a lot of people from even within UDA. If you listen to even Rigathi speaking, he has mentioned Kalonzo not once, not twice, not 3 times. And that alone tells you that there's recognition of a unit that is doing what they cannot do elsewhere. So we have opposition, and we will grow that opposition to not just being an opposition unit, but having it as an alternative government in waiting.
Okay,
Yes.
that's beautiful. And you know, when we go back to Uhuru still being the kingpin of the mountain,
Yes.
who do you see becoming the next, you know? And if there is no one, and Gachagua decides, you know, I'm running, you know, for presidency, would the mountain rally behind him?
One is that running for presidency does not make you a kingpin. No. A kingpin is a general consensus of people on your ability to give direction, irrespective of any office you are holding politically. Remember, Kibaki was never declared as a kingpin. When we had Kibaki, we had Michuki there, and we had Akina Karume. And Kibaki knew who to send. Remember, it is Michuki who told us, if you want to deal with Kikuyus, talk to Uhuru. That's a kingpin. He tells us, and we all agree, and it happens for now to almost 20 years, 15 years. That's the kingpin. So we may not have declared Michuki or Karume kingpins, but they were kingpins. When things would go wrong in the community, we would want to hear, how are they negotiating on our behalf? And when we would see them in any sitting, we knew the community is taken care of. But they never went around this country saying, I am the kingpin, I am the kingpin. When you see that happening, you are dealing with a very inadequate person. It comes naturally.
So Gachagua is not the kingpin of Mt.
He has,
Kenya right
you
now?
can ask Kenyans, and I don't believe that he himself finally said Uhuru is the kingpin. And what Kenyans from that region need to understand, if you want to become a political leader for the people there, gun for it, go for it. Do what needs to be done for you to become a political leader. As to whether people will eventually refer you as the kingpin, that will come naturally. If it doesn't come to you, don't die bitter. It was never purposed to be yours. Don't die bitter. So that is a little, and you know, he had declared, Gachagua had actually declared himself on record that the kingpin is William Ruto. And that was really an insult to the community. You can't go and declare yourself the kingpin of Kalenjins. No, you can't insult community to that level. So there are things that people, I have seen others saying that if you want to become the kingpin is not given to the deputy president, the kingpin, all those things alone, kingpin, that is something that comes naturally. Na itakuja tu kwa wale ambao watakuwa, they may not even occupy political offices, but the individuals, when they speak,
you listen.
Sema, sikizeni vile huyu anasema.
Is there anyone in Mt. Kenya who can speak right now and people listen?
Uhuru is still there, and Uhuru has allowed others to speak, so that when he is not speaking, those others who speak and people listen.
Away from Uhuru?
Away from Uhuru.
Who do we have?
I do not know, but away from Uhuru, those others who speak and people still listen, wanasema nini, that is where you start looking for the kingpin. Yes.
Okay, yes. That's nice. I want to hear your thoughts on you as Kioni now. What do you believe in? Away from all these dramas, theatrics, sympathy, you as Kioni, what do you believe in?
I believe that this country, like somebody said last night somewhere, is a very rich country. And there is, like it has been said before, there is enough for each one of us. But there isn't enough for the greedy ones. Iko ya kutosha kwa kila Mkenya. If we are able to manage ourselves well and really manage the greed that we have, and like Kibaki said, take leadership as a privilege to impact on the lives of others, as opposed to an opportunity to satisfy your own greed, this country can go very far. when Kibaki said that he is going to give free primary education to Kenyans, remember those who are there. I know these young men wanamsoma tu kwa gazeti. But that time, he had his whole leg, I think the right leg, had a plaster. Na ilikuwa inakaa namna hii. Shortly thereafter, he again went through another accident within the house and suffered even worse damage. But he said, we are going to have free primary education. That time he had no coin. But he believed that if we are going to go from point A to X, we must educate our people. The generation that we are seeing calling Gen Z are a product of those very deliberate policies that were put in place. When you talk about free education for this country, we can achieve it. It's free education in the manner that is defined, but every person who qualifies to do something should do it at the expense of those of us who are paying taxes, because he qualifies to come and pay taxes. We should now be able to have this universal health care. Remember, you know some things you couldn't believe it. Remember, 2 years ago, Daragwans were able, mtoto mwenye hana kiatu ambayo iko na sole yote imetosha, alikuwa anatoka primary school or secondary school in Daragwa, anaenda Aga Khan Nyahururu. The Aga Khan, the Nairobi hospital, the impeached hospitals that were left just a while earlier were meant for the privileged, the very few privileged in the society. With the stroke of a pen, having the Edu Afia, where every child, the government was paying 3,500 for every child in this country. The quality medication that was available near them was available for that child. We can do all those things. Mm-hmm. We can be able to take care of those young ladies who made me emotional at the beginning. There is no reason why we should be seeing people literally wasting away like that in this country. We have enough money to take care of them. I have a letter with me today of a lady called Wairimu from a constituency called Kadara. I was given the other day, I went for a burial for a mzee alikuwa anaitwa Muvea. Now the pastors brought the letter. Said Wairimu died last year October. She is still in mortuary today, 1 year later. Why? She incurred a bill of 1.4 million shillings. The family cannot pay. So tell me, what kind of imprisonment of the mind are we subjecting to that family? Why? Because we want them to pay 1.4 million shillings, which they do not have, and they did not incur, was incurred by another Kenyan who has died. This can be fixed, and it is not rocket science. Holding dead bodies in mortuary, holding people in hospitals when they have already been treated. These are things that should not be happening to us 60 years down the line. So we have, and again, we have this, looks like a nice diamond thing. I know it is. We have a lot of minerals in this country.
A lot.
But all these people are now gunning and coming together to try and exploit them. A few of them, not for the benefit of this good country called Kenya.
For themselves.
But for themselves. So we have enough in this country. We have enough. We only need to get people who are not going, forget about those around them who are going to become corrupt. If we have just a few people in government who will say, don't bring corruption around me, we can get into a proper thing. I believe that that is going to happen. And I hope it will happen in my lifetime.
Do you have presidential ambition?
When it comes, I'll let you know. But every time, for example, like now, I can tell you that if I was to throw my candidature onto the ring, it will be to confuse the people of Mt.Kenya. Because they may agree to follow me. But I have fought for the community for the time that I've been able, in the best way that I've known how. But then, the reality is that I will have given William Ruto ammunition to scatter the mountain. My take for 2027 is that we must rally behind a non-mountain person, so that we bring our 7 million votes there. and all the other communities will come there. Then we'll be able to remove this governance that has hurt everybody. Thereafter, you can then run around and convince others to follow you. But learning as a Kikuyu, a Meru, a Nebian, or a Mutharaka, it is actually belonging to Operation Okoa Sakayo. If you want to Okoa Kenya, we must rally behind another person. He may not be very strong. He could even be weaker than all the other people behind him. But it comes at times when you have to put some of these realities on the table. If it wasn't for that, there's no reason why I would not have declared my presidency. Kwani inatakana nini?
Hakuna.
Maji na unga na inatosha.
Na inatosha.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, there are also a lot of people who are doing opposition duties, but they are partless, they are nameless, they are tribeless. People like Morara, when you see such individuals that are taking on the government, that are doing things the opposition need to be doing, what do you say?
A realization of what is provided for in our constitution. It is not that it is the opposition that's supposed to be doing what Morara is doing. It's actually every Kenyan is supposed to be doing what that young man is provided for in the constitution. Each one of us has a responsibility to defend the constitution. And our constitution provides over 0 tolerance to corruption. So if you have a project out there that is not being done well, you have a responsibility of screaming out. And that is why I'm saying I'm so happy with this generation that is there, Gen Z, Millennial, and other generations.
Yes.
And I think, like somebody said, we now need all Gen Zote on board.
Yes.
To do what we are expected to do, to be doing as Kenyans, and we'll be able to fight corruption. Remember, even when you talk about leaguing of elections, there is no elections can be leaked in any polling station if the clerk is not involved. Na clerk ni kijana mwenye ametoka nyumbani hapo. Either he's a university student, amemaliza form 4 ile ya zamani, or a junior, waroko. So it takes all of us. And I give that example. There is no way votes will be stolen in a polling station if the ordinary clerk, the one lowest there, is not involved. Yeye ndio atasema, unaona nimeleta ballot bill na afuge macho ziwekwe ndani.
Yes.
It cannot be done without the involvement of them. So we all have a responsibility. And the joy about it is that the young people have come on board now to do it big time. So that's why I'm telling you, William is doing everything possible to ensure that he puts an IEBC that is constituted of his own people. Because how was it done? The proposal was that we'll have X number of members in the commission from the side of government, and X number from the side of the opposition. Our opposition, the person who was leading that side is Laila, and this side is William. Now Raila has moved to become William. So whatever we are going to get, it's something that can screw us. Mchana. But with the Gen Z, with the Millennials and Alpha and Gen Zote, saying that it does not matter who is an IBC, it's period, it's done. And I can tell you it can happen. During my first campaigns, I didn't even have agents. I didn't. I just went out. I didn't even have money.
Really?
I am telling you, people up to today wanakuja wananiambia, by the way, unajua, unakumbuka ile ulipoanza uchaguzi, siasa, I am the one who volunteered to be your agent at that polling station kwa sababu sikukuta mtu yoyote. And they were there and they said, usiguze hii. It gets there and it will get there. 2027 will be like that. Wacha ile mambo tunaambiwa Azimio hatukuwa na agent. Na wale agents ambao tunaambiwa hawakuwa, wengine wanasema mimi nililipwa na UDA na nililipwa na Azimio. And they are very proud about it. They don't actually understand that they are thieves. Kama ulilipwa mara mbili, you already a thief.
Yeah.
They don't appreciate that is actually really theft. And that's a person you should not trust. Because ahead of you should be the conscience.
Yes.
And I see 2027 very, very different. It happened this way to Moi, 202.
It will happen.
It will happen
in 2027.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I want to wind up, but before I do, what legacy are you looking into leaving behind?
I hope by the time I'm called home, there will be somebody who will say he touched my life. I will have made a difference to somebody's life.
Just that.
Just that.
Beautiful. He touched my life.
Touched my life.
And what would be your call to action to our audience looking at that camera?
All is not lost. There are enough Kenyans who are available to do good. Just look around. I told the bishop, and I must apologize here if I hurt her, at the same burial where I was being given the letter of Wairimu, who died more than a year ago and still in the mortuary. I told the bishop who said, she stood and said, hata mimi nitapeleka prando. You know, the desire of everybody having those big cars. I have one. I'm not saying nobody should have it.
Yes.
But the thing that has taken over Kenya's mind, and when I stood to speak, I don't know why I got to that point, but I told the bishop, wachana na magari makubwa, ikikuja ni yako, lakini kumbuka Yesu alihubiri Kenya hii na dunia mzima bila hiyo gari, na hutafika kiwango ambacho alihubiri. If it comes, let it be. But don't be driven by that, because when you are driven by just that, you will not be able to achieve what God wants you to achieve with the little that you have. Remember, Moses Yauririzwa, what is it that you are holding in your hand? Allow me to use it. And he moved the Israelites from Egypt towards Canaan.
What's in your hand?
What's in your hand? Ni nini hiyo uko nayo? Hiyo simu, bendera na maji imetuletea mageuzi Kenya. Yes. And without doubt, this country is never the same.
Never.
And it will never be the same again. Yes. What's in your hand?
What's in your hand?
Simu, chupa ya maji na bendera.
Hiyo tu.
Na tuende kazi.
Simu, chupa ya maji
na bendera.
Lakini bunduki zote nyuma ya simu, maji na bendera. Before I finish, our producer Edwin is reminding me to ask you, we have two different factions of Jubilee right now.
Hakuna Jubilee ni moja.
Ni moja?
Jubilee ni moja.
Na ya Sabina ni gani?
Na Jubilee ile iko na Uhuru as a party leader. Na ingine na SG. Anaitwa Jeremiah Kioni. Ingine yote ni bidii. Watu wanafanya ya kuona kama wao pia wanaweza fanya kazi. But that is the way it is.
It is what it is.
Yes, that's the way it is. That is the way it is. And in a short while, it will tell.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
All right.
Perhaps one of the things that the gentleman needs to hear, the Gen Z.
Yes.
One of the other realizations that must now dawn on them. I know they say they are partyless, but political parties are more powerful than elected leaders. Because without the party, you cannot be the leader that you are claiming and being proud of. It is the vehicle that makes you who you are. So if then you decide to go and behave differently from what was the agreement with your party, you will realize that you are actually a very ordinary person. The institution will remain. You'll go and you'll go away without respect. So managing political parties is yet another of the major things that must be done by Gen Zs. You may not want to run for the office, but come and manage political parties. If I'm in a function, I will not, if it is to be proud, I will say I cannot speak ahead of my subjects. I am the SG who signs their certificates to become members of parliament. So let them speak and I'll come and correct them. Because I know what the party stands for. And when they say they are saying yes to the finance bill, tell them that is not what the party stands for. The party can be made truthful to the aspirations of Kenyans. Individuals will get swayed by the goodies that come with their positions.
Good.
Yes.
Period.
Asante.
Because how Edwin? We are good. All right. I think for me, my take home is what you've just said here. What's in your hand? And I feel like if all of us looked around us and we see what we are able to do, then collectively we can be able to secure our country
and change the direction.
Yes, it's very sad that now we are talking about securing our country.
Yes.
That's a conversation we should never have.
60 years later.
That's a conversation we should never have in the first place. But thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you.
Asante pia.
Kenya ni home.
Ni nyumbani
Na
kabisa.
lazima muitunze.
Yes.
That's a very firm handshake.
And thank you for what you're also doing.
I appreciate
this
it.
This is very useful. It's part of what you have.
Yes.
You now have this and you're using it to help the country move in a different direction.
This is what's in our
Nashukuru
hands.
sana.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, guys, also for tuning in. What a show, what a conversation. And as always, you know, for me, I'm really interested in you watching the whole show and then telling me on the comment section what has been your take home. And we must not be scared of having these conversations, because I have said, tuwezi kaa tuseme tupendi politics. Us saying tupendi politics as Kenyans is what has gotten us to where we are today. We've left politics to people who are not able to govern this nation. So we cannot shy away and say, nah, politics is not my thing. Right now, it becomes your thing because Kenya ni home. So let's do this collectively, because we are able to impact our society by ourselves. Thank you so much to everyone, including my beautiful team, for coming through on this episode. You know what I say? You get to see me in front of the camera, but it takes this whole team to be able to put this work together. So thank you, Sana, Team LNN. And also, if there is anything you cannot say on the comment section, our email is always open, info@lnn.digital. That's where you can be able to get us. And while at it, let us know also on the comment section, who would you love to see next on LNS? My name is Lynn Ngugi. Hopefully, I get to see you tomorrow. You know what time? 7 p.m. or 10 a.m. Bye-bye.